In the quiet town of Ravenswood, a place known for its serene streets and friendly community, lived Jane Mitchell. She was an unassuming woman in her early 30s, leading a simple life as a librarian. But beneath her quiet exterior lay a chilling secret, one that would forever mark her as a survivor. Years ago, when the town was gripped by fear due to a series of gruesome murders, Jane found herself at the center of the terror. The Ravenwood Reaper, as the serial killer came to be known, had already taken the lives of 5 innocent victims. The local police were baffled, and residents lived in a state of constant anxiety. One fateful night, as Jane was returning home from work, she felt an eerie presence behind her. She quickened her pace, her heart pounding, and turned a corner onto a dimly lit street. There, the Reaper emerged from the shadows, his sinister grin illuminated by the pale moonlight. Jane's scream echoed through the night as she sprinted for her life. The chase was relentless, each step fraught with the fear of death. Miraculously, Jane managed to reach a nearby house and pounded on the door, pleading for help. The homeowner, a retired Marine named Robert, opened the door and quickly assessed the situation. Armed with his military instincts, he confronted the Reaper and engaged in a fierce struggle. In the end, Robert's courage prevailed. With the help of his neighbors, he subdued the Reaper and handed him over to the police. The town erupted in celebration, and Jane was hailed as a hero. She had survived the clutches of a serial killer who had terrorized the town for months. However, the twist in this harrowing tale emerged years later, when Jane herself was apprehended for a series of eerily similar murders. The evidence was damning. DNA, fingerprints, and eyewitness accounts all pointed to her guilt. The town that had once embraced her as a survivor now recoiled in horror, unable to fathom that the very woman who had escaped the Reaper's grasp was capable of such heinous acts. As the trial unfolded, Jane's defense attorney argued that the trauma of her near-death experience had triggered a dissociative personality disorder. They presented a compelling case, recounting the psychological toll of her encounter with the Reaper. And then, in a shocking turn of events, a hidden diary was discovered. A diary detailing Jane's alternate persona, the one responsible for the murders. The court was left stunned, struggling to comprehend the depths of Jane's psychological turmoil. The survivor had become the perpetrator, her mind a battlefield of horrors. In the end, Jane was found not guilty by reason of insanity and committed to a psychiatric institution, forever haunted by the sinister twist of fate that had transformed her from victim to villain. In the quaint town of Pinecrest, nestled deep within the forests of Oregon, resided Sarah Walker. Pinecrest was the epitome of tranquility, a place where crime was almost unheard of. But the illusion of safety shattered when a series of chilling murders struck fear into the heart of the community. Sarah, a young nurse in her late 20s, had always felt secure in Pinecrest's embrace. She lived alone in a cozy cottage surrounded by towering pine trees. However, that security was brutally shattered one moonlit night. As Sarah stepped out onto her porch to take in the crisp night air, a sudden rustling in the bushes caught her attention, her gaze fixed on a dark figure emerging from the shadows. Panic knotted her stomach when she recognized the man from the news, the Pinecrest Predator, as the media had dubbed him. He was a cold-blooded serial killer responsible for a string of gruesome murders that had plagued the town. Fear paralyzed Sarah as the man's gaze locked onto hers, his twisted smile sending shivers down her spine. Instinct kicked in, and she dashed back into her cottage, fumbling to lock the door. The man's chilling laughter echoed through the night as he pounded on the door, his voice a sinister whisper promising horrors untold. Hours stretched into eternity as Sarah cowered in her dimly lit living room, clutching her phone and praying for salvation. Eventually, the relentless pounding ceased, replaced by an unsettling silence. Trembling, she mustered the courage to peek outside, only to find the man had vanished into the night. Terrified, Sarah contacted the police, recounting the harrowing encounter. Pinecrest was plunged into a state of panic as news of the predator's brazen approach spread like wildfire. The town united, arming themselves with renewed vigilance and caution. Patrols were intensified, and curfews were imposed, but the predator remained elusive. Weeks turned into months, and Pinecrest's fear gradually evolved into cautious optimism. Sarah, meanwhile, struggled with her own demons. Nightmares of the man's deranged smile haunted her, and every sound in the night sent her heart racing. She found solace in the support of her community, particularly in the company of a kind-hearted neighbor, David. David, a local carpenter, had always been a source of comfort for Sarah. They shared stories, laughed, and slowly, a deep bond formed between them. Sarah found herself falling for David, his warmth and sincerity soothing her wounded spirit. One evening, as they sat on Sarah's porch watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, David admitted something that left her speechless. He confessed to having lost a sister to the Pinecrest predator years ago. His voice trembled as he recounted his sister's bravery and how her death had forever scarred his family. It was then that Sarah's blood ran cold. The realization hit her like a freight train. The Pinecrest predator had targeted David's family, and the man she had encountered that fateful night was none other than David himself. A wave of terror washed over her as she pieced together the puzzle. The man she had grown to love, the man she thought she could trust, was the very serial killer who had tormented the town. The twist was as unbelievable as it was horrifying. David's confession sent shockwaves through Pinecrest, shattering the community's fragile sense of security. Sarah was left grappling with a terrifying truth, that evil could lurk even in the most familiar faces. As the town reeled from the revelation, Sarah found herself trapped in a nightmare she could never have imagined, a survivor bound to a killer's embrace. In the heart of the sleepy town of Millbrook, nestled in the outskirts of Indiana, lived Emily Turner. Millbrook was a picturesque town where everyone knew everyone else, a place where the most unsettling occurrence was an occasional power outage during thunderstorms. But beneath the town's tranquil facade, a horrifying secret lay dormant. Emily, a young artist in her mid-20s, had recently moved to Millbrook to escape the fast-paced city life. She found solace in the quiet surroundings and scenic landscapes that inspired her paintings. However, her newfound peace was shattered one crisp autumn evening. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily was walking home from her favorite spot by the river, her canvas and paints in hand. She felt a subtle unease, a sensation of being watched. Her pace quickened, the crunch of leaves underfoot the only sound piercing the silence. Just as she approached her cottage, a shadowy figure emerged from the trees, blocking her path. The stranger's face was obscured by a hood, but his intentions were chillingly clear. Emily's heart raced as he lunged at her with a knife, his crazed eyes reflecting a twisted determination. She fought back with every ounce of strength, her screams echoing through the night. Desperation gave her an unexpected surge of energy, and she managed to break free, racing toward the safety of her cottage. Gasping for breath, Emily locked herself in, her heart pounding against her ribs. She watched in horror as the stranger paced outside, his shadow dancing ominously on the walls. The minutes dragged on like hours, until the stranger finally retreated into the darkness. Terrified and traumatized, Emily contacted the police. The town was in shock. Such violence was unimaginable in their close-knit community. The police launched an investigation, but the stranger seemed to have vanished without a trace. Emily struggled to regain her sense of security, living in constant fear that he might return. Years passed, and the incident became a haunting memory. Emily found solace once again in her art, channeling her fear and anxiety onto the canvas. She became a local celebrity, her paintings capturing the essence of Millbrook's beauty. The town rallied around her, proud of their resilient artist who had survived the unthinkable. But just when the scars on Emily's psyche were beginning to heal, a shocking revelation emerged. The police announced the arrest of a man in a neighboring town, a man with a long history of violent crimes. His confession sent shockwaves through Millbrook, a confession that included the attack on Emily. As the trial commenced, Emily faced the man who had haunted her nightmares for years. She recounted the chilling details of that fateful night, her voice steady despite the trauma resurfacing. The evidence was overwhelming, and the courtroom held its collective breath as the jury prepared to deliver the verdict. And then, as if scripted by fate, a shocking twist emerged. Another man burst into the courtroom, wild-eyed and disheveled. He confessed to being the actual attacker, revealing that he had witnessed Emily's struggle from the shadows that night. The real assailant had disappeared years ago, leaving Emily to believe that she had triumphed over her demons. In the end, the court was left stunned, the justice system grappling with the revelation that Emily had unknowingly lived in the shadow of the true attacker for years. The small town of Millbrook was left to reckon with the realization that monsters could hide in plain sight, even in the most idyllic of places.